Hi, and welcome to the first of my postnatal videos for the early postnatal mum. These should be done from your 6-week check or 8-week if you've had a C-section, and should be done at least 3 times a week for about 6 weeks before you move on to the higher level exercises. I'm using a yoga block and a Pilates ball for these exercises. You can swap in a cushion for any of those. So we're going to get started with some lunges. So let's put our heels underneath our hips and then take a good step forward with one foot and then back with the other so that you can feel a good distance between your thighs. Bring the hip of the back leg forward and we're going to start by bending both knees. So we're bringing the back knee down towards the floor. You don't want it to touch the floor, and then we're going to push through the heel of the front foot to come up. And we're going to breathe in and breathe out as we go down and up and down. So it's nice and slow. You want to feel the muscles that are moving, that are working. And let's do 2 more. Lovely. Now stay with both legs straight first of all. Push the heel of that back foot backwards. And now we're going to bend only the front leg. So we're levering forward. Try not to squish the toes into the front foot. And then we're coming up. Just the front knee bending, taking our hips forward and back. And we'll do 1 more. And on this one, we're going to hold down at the lowest position, back heel pressing back, hips dropped. Take the same arm as the front leg onto the front leg, and then reach over with the same arm as your back leg. And have a big stretch. You want to feel the stretch from the back heel all the way up to the top wrist. Okay, and then we're going to take that onto the other side. So if you start with your feet hip width, then you know that they'll remain hip width. Take a step forward with one leg, back with the other. Both legs straight. Bring the hip of the back leg forward. And then we're dropping the back knee towards the floor. And lifting. Lovely. After this one, both legs are straight, back heel presses back, front knee is going to lever you forward and you come up. Let's hold this last one down. Arm on the front leg, other arm reaches right up overhead, back heel presses backwards. And then we'll come up. And we're going to kneel down on the floor now. So we're going to stretch the back of our legs. So I'm kneeling hip width apart again, and we're going to take a huge step forward with one leg in line with my hip, and then pull the ball of the foot towards me, and then hinging from the hip I'm just going to lever forward over that front leg. So I don't want to round my back here, I want to have my tailbone sticking out behind me, and you can feel that the more you untuck your pelvis, the more of a stretch you'll have behind the thigh of that leg. You don't want to have it excruciatingly painful, just enough discomfort to know that you're stretching the muscle. Let's do the other side. So slide your hips back, that brings your chest forward, hinging from the hip, ball of the foot coming towards you. I'm not putting much weight on this front leg. My hands don't need to be there at all. The back of the knee is definitely down. Tailbone shooting out behind you. Dip in your lower back. Okay, and then let's come up, and we're going to come into all fours. So we're going to do some movement of the lower part of the spine first. So you can be on your elbows for this if you'd rather not be on your hands. Shoulders need to be down away from your ears. You've got a nice wide upper back, and I'm just going to tuck and untuck my pelvis. Knees should be about underneath your hips, and there's not a lot of movement in the upper back, if any. I'm going to stay with an untucked lower back, my belly button just slightly drawn in, and then I'm going to lower my tummy down towards the floor. So I'm just letting it all hang without changing my back shape, and then pulling my belly button up, and then lowering it down. Just see how much you can relax your tummy down without moving your lower back, and then how much you can pull your belly button in, again without moving your lower back. And you might feel a connection to your pelvic floor as you draw in. And I'm going to breathe out, let my tummy out. Breathe in and draw it in. And let's do one more. Now stay with your belly button just pulled up just slightly, so you've got a small pelvic floor connection and you feel switched on around your pelvic area. And we're going to drop our head so we can see our thighs, and our neck's got no tension in it. And I'm going to slide one of my legs back behind me. Without changing my back shape, I'm going to lift that leg. Now if you'd like to, your opposite arm can also reach forward and lift. You need your shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip to stay at the same level. And then we're going to slide that arm and leg back in, and then go with the other side. So the other leg slides out, it lifts, option to lift the arm as well, and they slide in. So make sure your knees are coming back to hip width, so they're not coming closer together. And you're keeping nice and stable across the shoulders and across the pelvis. Off we go again. And after this one, let's do one more on each side. Last one. Okay, bring that arm and leg back in, flatten your feet and just sit back for a moment just to get some flexion into the spine. Forehead can come to the floor. Okay, let's come to lie on our side. And we're going to do the clam in some varieties. You want to feel your outer hip working here. So hips need to stay stacked. So make sure they're stacked first. With your top knee might look like it's even a little bit too far over the bottom knee. Heels together, elbow under your shoulder, waist lifted, head in line with the rest of your spine, or you can lie out over the bottom arm if you'd rather not be on this shoulder. This hand can be on your hip or in front of you. I'm just going to lift the top leg and lower it gently down. I'm making it go as high as it can go, but I'm not moving the hip back. So my heels stay next to each other. I'm not turning the top foot like that towards the bottom one. Okay, after this one, let's lift our heels off the floor. So both feet are hovering, and we'll do 6 more here. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold this last one. We're going to do 6 pulses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bring that knee down. Lovely. Let's change to the other side. Elbow underneath your shoulder, waist lifted, head in line with the rest of your chest, rest of your spine. Make sure your knees are slightly are stacked, so maybe the top knee looks a little bit far over, and hips are stacked. And we lift. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then hover your feet for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold this last one, and we pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Bring that knee down. Lovely. We're going to lie on our back. I am going to put my head on this yoga block. You could put your head on a cushion if you don't have a yoga block. And I'm going to have the ball ready for the next exercise, and that could equally be a cushion. So I'm lying on my back, my heels in line with my hips, outside edges of my feet parallel. I'm bringing my heels in so they are almost vertical underneath, right underneath my knees. Get as close as you can get to that. And I'm going to tilt my pelvis, so my lower back's pushing into the mat and then lifting off. Tailbone staying on the floor. And then stay with a lift of your lower back, and my pelvis here in front, hip bone, pubic bone, is on a plane that's parallel to the floor. And my ribs need to sink down to the floor if they're not already. I'm going to take a big breath in into my ribs and breathe out from my pelvis. So the breath out gives me that sucking in feeling of my hip bones towards each other and a drawing up of the pelvic floor. I'm going to use that breath to lift my legs. So a big breath in and a breath out of the pelvis and lift one leg up to tabletop. Breathe in here, breathe out to put that foot down. Breathe in and breathe out. And in and out. Leg goes down and leg up and down. So nice and slow, and my hands are monitoring my hips, staying nice and still. Lift and lower. And underneath my hands, I shouldn't feel my stomach bulging. So if you feel a bulging of your stomach, you could go back to lifting just heels off the floor, or just try, as the leg's up, just try and melt some softness into your lower belly through the out breath. And lower. And after this next one, let's do one more on each side. So we're lifting and lowering, and then the last two, lift and lower and lift and lower. Lovely. So I'm going to use the cushion or squashy ball, put it between my knees. My heels are going to be in line with my hips, or even slightly wider, so my knees feel like they're going in towards the ball, which they are. I've got that little gap in my lower back. My hands on my pelvis feel a flat surface, and I'm going to squeeze the ball really hard and then release. So just squeezing and releasing. And my bottom's not squeezing, the weight in my feet is not changing very much or at all. And both knees are squeezing in equally. Squeeze and release. Squeeze and release. One more here. We're squeezing and releasing. And now I'm going to lift my hips just off the floor. So I'm pushing through my heels to get that lift. And my ribs are down on the floor, so I've got a scoop of my pelvis. And I'm going to do 3 squeezes here and releasing. And I can feel that starting to get into my bottom area. Last one. Now I'm going to hold a squeeze on the ball, and I'm going to lift my hips up until I can feel definite activation of both of my glutes. I'm going to take the cushion out from behind my head, the block out, just because now it feels too high, but your cushion might be low enough that feels okay. So now I've got a definite squeeze of both of my glutes, and I'm going to release the squeeze on the ball here, and then put it back in, keeping my hips at the same level. Release and squeeze. And again, squeeze and release. And we'll do 2 more, and then we'll do a hold. So this next squeeze, we're going to hold a squeeze, both knees squeezing in equally, bottom really tight, inner thighs really working hard. And then we'll slowly take our spine down to the floor, just 1 vertebrae at a time. Reach forward, take the cushion out, and then take your legs out. Have a big stretch. Lovely. And then to finish this section off, we're just going to go into a pigeon to stretch the hip. So we're going to start in all fours and then take one leg across your chest but in front of you. So I'm bringing one knee up towards the hand and the foot is in line with the other leg, and as much of a diagonal as you can get with that calf is great. And that's on the mat. And then I'm going to walk the other knee back, the other leg back, but keep my hips at the same height. Keep your ribs down here. You don't want to be doing a huge back flexion the wrong way. And if you can settle your elbows down onto the floor, maybe let your head hang. But if that feels uncomfortable, then you can keep some support in your hands. You shift a little from left to right when you're here, then you might feel just a place where you just feel a little bit more of a pull across that hip of the bent front leg. Let's walk that back knee back in, back to a loose all fours position. Other leg's going to come across, diagonal, walk the other knee back. You might not get the same positioning as you did with the other leg. This hip might be quite different. Hips do need to be at the same level, hands on the floor or elbows. Have a little shift, just a small rocking left to right. Find that place where there's a bit more of a pull. Let's walk that back leg back in. And we're just going to finish off this short sequence with a neck stretch. So I'm going to take one arm out in front of me, palm up as if I'm handing out drinks, and bring the elbow on a tray. Bring your elbow into your side and take that hand out as far as it can go without the elbow leaving your side. Then I'm going to drop my chin to my chest and let my ear drop away from that turned shoulder. My hand is just going to go on, just not to pull, but to add a little bit of weight. And I can feel that pull down the side of my neck there, under my ear and behind. You can change the positioning of your chin slightly to find more of a pull. Shoulders are sinking down to the floor. Leave your hand on your head to bring your head up to vertical. And let's do the other side. So hand out, tray of drinks, elbow in, take that palm out and let your chin drop in and away. Hand on just for a bit of weight. Little moves to find more of a stretch. Leave your hand on your head to bring your head to vertical. I hope you enjoyed that short class. Check out my other videos on my YouTube channel.